Good afternoon, Cross Timbers. Today is Thursday, July 24th. This is Texan TV News from the Tarleton State University campus in Stephenville, Texas. I am Bethany Kyle. Here are today's top stories. Tarleton student helps save woman's life in Round Rock. High school solar car challenge makes stop in Stephenville. Texas to send up to 1,000 troops to the border. Bodies from MH17 victims return home. Scientists to explore one of North America's greatest sources of ancient fossils. The AP News Minute, and the weather. In campus news, according to WFAA Channel 8 News, TSU freshman Blake Pryor of Georgetown is being called courageous after helping to save a woman's life in Round Rock. The woman had climbed over the concrete barrier on the flyover from eastbound Highway 45 to northbound Interstate 35. Police were dispatched to the scene on a welfare concern. Before they were able to get there, Pryor, who did not know the woman, stopped to help and stood between her and the barrier, holding her back from the 100-foot drop. Pryor offered to stay and talk with the woman as she told him that she believed no one cared. Round Rock Police Department officers on scene said that his actions are what saved her life. Pryor is majoring in criminal justice at Tarleton and plans to enroll in a police academy after graduating. In local news, high school teams participating in the Solar Car Challenge made Hardate and Stephenville one of their stops on their trek from Fort Worth to Austin. The Solar Car Challenge is an initiative that was established in 1993 that challenges high school students to build a roadworthy solar car and compete against other teams from across the nation. The competitors made their stop in Stephenville as part of Day 1 of the cross-country portion of the race, starting that day in Fort Worth and ending up in Waco, a potential of 154 miles. They alternate driving and having the car pulled on a trailer based on the terrain, but the car that travels the most miles wins. Technical Director Chris Jones has been a part of the Solar Challenge since 1997 when he competed as a student. He noted how the competition helped him decide what he wanted to do with his life, and he sees the students grow, change, and learn every year with the challenge. The first team to arrive in Stephenville was from Houston, Mississippi. We had a chance to talk to them about how long they've been working on this project and the lessons they learned from being a part of the Solar Car Challenge this year.
About a school year, a little over a school year. This is our 15th race, and we go into places and we meet new people. I would probably never go half it. Like last year we went to LA, somewhere I'd probably never go just on a whim. It was really cool. And I've learned a lot of like life lessons working on this, how to work with mechanical stuff.
The final day of driving is today, with the teams traveling 135 miles from Waco to Austin. More information on the Solar Car Challenge can be found at solarcarchallenge.org. Now for state, national, and international news from the Associated Press. In Texas news, this week Governor Rick Perry has announced the deployment of up to 1,000 National Guard troops to the Texas-Mexico border.
The National Guard troops that I am deploying will support the state-led border surge by acting as a force multiplier on the ground and providing additional air assets beyond their current efforts. The price of inaction is too high for Texans to pay. Now, fortunately, we're already seeing results from Operation Strong Safety. From week 1 to week 3, apprehensions have dropped 36%, from more than 6,600 per week to 4,200 per week in that area of operation. This is a clear indication that the increased patrol presence and the coordinated law enforcement efforts between our local, state, and federal partners, including the Department of Public Safety personnel, our Texas Parks and Wildlife wardens, and others, are having a deterrent effect on criminal and illegal activity along the border. This idea that somehow or another there's a militarization going on is frankly a little offensive to the folks of the National Guard who travel to the border on regular basis to help, and this is about border security.
This is not the first time Perry has called for this type of action. In early 2009, he asked for the same number of troops in response to drug cartel violence. This time, however, comes from the arrival of more than 57,000 child immigrants that have crossed the border into Texas along the Rio Grande Valley. Perry had asked for the president for troops to send to the border, but has deployed them now under his authority as governor. This deployment will cost Texas approximately $12 million a month. The problem has not come from immigrants attempting to evade authorities. Most caught in South Texas are surrendering. The issue comes from Border Patrol stations' lack of room to hold all the unaccompanied child immigrants while they await processing. In international news, bodies from the plane shot down over eastern Ukraine last week were returned to the Netherlands, where most of the passengers were from.
A somber day in the Netherlands Wednesday, but a day the families of many of the victims of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 have been waiting for. Almost a week after the plane was shot down over eastern Ukraine, bodies finally began arriving here, home to the majority of the 298 people killed in the crash. 2 military transport planes carrying the 40 coffins bearing the victims landed in the southern city of Eindhoven. They were met by the Dutch King and Queen, Prime Minister Mark Rutte, and hundreds of grieving relatives. Speaking in Ukraine before the planes took off, a Dutch government representative said the process of identification will be a journey.
We have a painful identification process to go through that will take time. But the Dutch government wants to assure family members and all those concerned that we want to do the identification as quickly as possible.
As the bodies arrived, British investigators began work on a pair of black boxes to retrieve data on the flight's last minutes. Dutch officials say they've taken charge of the investigation and pleaded anew for unhindered access to the crash site. Meanwhile, fighting flared again in the region. Just 20 miles from the site of the wreckage, pro-Russia rebels shot down 2 Ukrainian fighter jets. Separatists say one of the pilots was killed, another is being sought by rebel fighters. The insurgents deny having missiles that could hit a jetliner at cruising altitude, but they say they do have ground-to-air missiles that could hit targets as high as 11,000 feet. Kelly Daschle, Associated Press.
In national news, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management is preparing for scientists to revisit one of North America's most extensive sites for ancient fossils for the first time in 30 years. In Natural Trap Cave of north central Wyoming resides the bones of tens of thousands of animals piled 30 feet deep. The cave is 85 feet deep and impossible to see unless you're right next to it. Over tens of thousands of years, animals continued not to see the 15-foot opening and fell to their deaths in the cave. Leading the team of researchers is Julie Meakin of Des Moines University, who said she is pretty terrified to take this on as she's never done any real climbing, and the only way into Natural Trap Cave is to rappel down, and the only way out is an 8-story single rope climb. They plan to start the exploration of the cave on Monday and dig for 2 weeks. There's also a National Science Foundation grant that will allow them to go back in 2015 and 2016. For more of the top national and international news, we'll go to the AP News Minute.
This is AP News Minute. The chairman of Ukraine's lawmaking body announced the dissolution of the Communist Party from Parliament. The termination of the Communist Party came about after lawmakers voted to change regulations in Parliament. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer has ordered a full review of the state's execution procedures after it took a man almost 2 hours to die. Joseph Rudolph Wood was given a lethal injection and started gasping shortly after. Death penalty opponents called Wood's execution cruel and unusual punishment. Stormy weather trailing behind a typhoon was likely the cause of a plane crash on a Taiwanese island that killed 48 people on board. The victims included 46 from Taiwan and 2 French medical students who were interns in the country. At the U.S. Mint in West Point, New York, workers are busy giving President John F. Kennedy a facelift. Engravers gave more detail on the former president's skin texture and made his hair a bit more full on the newest coin being issued as a $10 collectible. Matthew Burgoyne, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
Today's weather forecast, provided by weather.com, is mostly sunny with a high of 97 and a low of 73. This has been a production of Texan TV News, a product of the Texan News Service from the Tarleton State University campus in Stephenville, Texas. You can follow the Texan News Service on Facebook and Twitter, and check out our website at www.texannews.net for all of your latest local, state, national, and international news, as well as all of your entertainment and sports news. Today's broadcast was produced by Ashley Husbands, Isaac Foster, Rachel Peoples, and Sarah Gann. I am Bethany Kyle. Have a wonderful day, Tarleton Texans.